Welcome to another episode of the Draftnerds podcast. I'm your host, Matt, here again with another show, and I got a special guest here today, and my guy Cordell Woodland. What's up, Cordell?
What's good, man? Appreciate you having me.
Of course. So, man, we got so many things to kind of jump into here. Um, let's kind of let's start with how's everything been going on your end? I know it's been super busy, with covering the team. I know you cover the Orioles as well, and it's a lot going on, right? Like with new coaching, new leadership in the building that requires you guys to work. I'm sure long nights and early mornings. Tell me, what has that been like from just a media standpoint?
Yeah, man, just having to stay current, and that's kind of the perk of working in sports is like you're doing things you were already going to do anyway. I was already going to be trying to keep up with the coaching hirings and firings and the changes within the organizations. But yeah, I mean, with both teams essentially having a lot of changes this off season, the Orioles getting a new manager, the Ravens obviously moving on from Harbaugh after 18 years and hiring Jesse Mentor, and they've started to fill out their coordinators and a couple of their positional coaches. It's just, just staying aware and just trying to keep up with the fast pace that is professional sports.
Absolutely. Once again, for those that are just joining us, we're live here with Cordell Woodland, um, co-host of the Fresh Take, and also a covering the Ravens and the Orioles as a beat reporter for 105.7 The Fan. All right, so to kind of go off of that, right? Fresh energy in the city of Baltimore, new managers on both sides, new coaches, and John Harbaugh out after 18 years. Was that something that kind of took you by surprise, or kind of being close to the team, you already saw it coming?
Yeah, I mean, I think you always felt there were multiple times this year, and I would say it on air, like you just felt like this thing had run its course. You felt like it was time. Um, and the only question was, did Steve feel that way? Did Steve think that it was time? Because ultimately it would be his decision. And even you heard John. I saw John do a interview with Howard Eskin a few days ago, and even he said, in his heart of hearts, he knew it was time. So I think it was just a matter of Steve pulling the trigger and actually doing it, and he did it, and he spoke openly about it when we had his press conference a couple of weeks ago. And it just, the Ravens have had a great run with John. They won a Super Bowl with him. Like, that's, you can't ask for much more. You had that stability, you had your time, and let's not forget the team going to New England and their pathway to get that Super Bowl and just the sustained success I think that Baltimore has had throughout John's time. Obviously, it didn't end great,
No.
and that's how it typically goes, especially in this case where I think it went on a little longer than it probably should have. It ends up kind of, just dissolving and almost becoming poisoned after a while, and it just gets worse and worse. And that's what you saw. They go from hosting the AFC Championship game to losing in a divisional round, a game that they probably should have won, to not even making the playoffs. Like, you're going from bad to worse now. And so I don't think them missing the playoffs was something John could survive, especially considering how they were losing some of these games. And even Steve said he thought a huge reason why the season went the way that it did was because guys didn't develop. And he put that on coaching. There were guys that he expected to take a step forward this year that didn't take that step, and it really bit them. So, they both go their separate ways, and we'll see what it looks like now in this new era.
Yeah, absolutely. Ozzie Newsome had a philosophy when he was the GM that he would always say, we would rather let a guy go a year too early than a year too late, right? And I know that motto was more geared towards players, but I couldn't help but think about that as well when it came to coaching, right? And when it comes to just in general, because you're right, that it did feel like the relationship had run its course, and it was just kind of two sides holding on to each other, for better or for worse. And John, I mean, from just a macro point of view, I mean, he had a fantastic 18 years. Like you said, multiple AFC Championship game appearances, a Super Bowl win, multiple division titles. I think his win-loss record, in the playoffs was fantastic. A lot due to the beginning of his career where they won a lot of playoff games with Joe Flacco and that defense. And then getting back there with Lamar Jackson once he came in. But I think the thing that ended up getting him extended in 2018 is the same thing that got him canned, right, in 2025, 26, was that it was Lamar Jackson, right? Lamar Jackson came in and made everybody believe that, okay, cool, we're back on track. We got this generational quarterback. We should be competing and going to the Super Bowl. And once last season ended, well, not last season, the season before last ended, the divisional round against the Bills, and then this season not making the playoffs, it became very apparent that, this guy had taken the Ravens and Lamar Jackson as far as he could. Is that the kind of the way you saw it as well? And you mentioned like some players that just didn't develop, like Odafe Oweh going and getting all those sacks with the LA Chargers could have not have sat well with Steve Bisciotti.
Yeah.
You saw it?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Odafe Oweh, 10.5 sacks this year, including the playoff games where he had 3. Like, and
Chargers franchise record, by the way. That was a franchise record for the Chargers.
Insane. Not a single sack in Baltimore before he was traded to LA this year. Yeah, that's a killer. I mean, that's a direct correlation on coaching. Now, you can't ignore the fact that Chargers had more around him, I think, especially up front. I mean, Khalil Mack on the other side, as opposed to Kyle Van Noy at this stage of his career, it's night and day. But this was a resurging year for Khalil Mack. I mean, Khalil Mack had been battling with injuries recently. He hadn't been the same dominant player that he once was. But that was some of the impact of Jesse Minter. Same with Derwin James, who had battled injuries a lot. And it wasn't looking like Derwin was the same Derwin that we all knew. I'm a huge Derwin James fan, but without a doubt, he's been revived out there in that defense the last couple of years. So I just think with the Ravens needing, like you said, they have basically gone as far as they could go with John. I think when you look at some of the games these last couple of seasons, it wasn't many that I felt like the Ravens just, where I left that game saying, oh man, John and those guys, they just outcoached them. They outcoached them in that one. I very rarely say that. I don't recall a game saying that recently. But and people could say, well, he's got Lamar and all that. Well, I look at a team like the Rams or the Niners, all the injuries the Niners have dealt with at times, been plenty of times I've left games like, man, they won that game because of Kyle going out there just calling a heck of a game. And I think it just became apparent that the Ravens did need somebody that had an expertise, somebody that directly impacted the game the way that the coaches I just mentioned, 2 offensive-minded coaches in McVay and Shanahan, but they going after Minter, who's one of the young, bright defensive minds, same as Mike McDonald right now. These guys, I like that they call plays on their respective sides of the ball because, again, it's a direct impact on the game. John was a CEO, and that's fine. You can win with the CEO, but John's issue was he took his hands off the wheel. And when the Ravens were swerving through from lane to lane and going off road, John sat there and watched it happen instead of grabbing the wheel. That was really the death sentence for him. And it was a big reason why they didn't make the playoffs this year, because they're losing games they shouldn't be losing. And they obviously had the injuries. The O-line was bad, roster flaws. There were more issues than just John, but John didn't help his team. And even if you go back to the playoff games, there weren't enough situations where John is throwing out a life jacket to his players to help them out in times that they need it. Players play the games, and ultimately a lot of the responsibility does fall on them. But there are coaches in the league that you see how, I use the analogy of like Madden. If you're in the 88 overall, I need a coach that's going to bump it up 2 and get me to a 90 overall.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like John did that on the back end of his career in Baltimore.
Yeah. Definitely got the sense of it was kind of coasting, and which naturally kind of happens to anyone in any profession that you've been for so long. It's kind of hard to keep trying to, reinvent the wheel, so to speak, or kind of find new motivation, right? When you're just kind of doing this thing over and over and over again, right? So yeah, it was definitely a time to move on. I thought it was very refreshing what Steve Bisciotti said in his presser, right? Like it was done, right? He had made up his mind. They asked him, I'm not sure who asked the question, but the question was, hey, have they won that game? How would John still be the coach? And he says full week. It was done. It was final, and most of the Ravens fans, I'm sure, were excited about the fact that they were changing this, turning the page, so to speak, and going to something new, and giving the fans something exciting and new to look forward to, even if it's not a hit like straight out the park, right? As far as like immediately, right? Even if it's not like just something new, right? Something new to be excited about. And that brings me to Jesse Minter. What was your thoughts about the hiring? Is before they decided on Jesse, is he someone that you wanted them to go after? I know I was a big Clint Kubiak guy. I felt like creating putting an offensive system around Lamar, not just offensive plays or guy, like, because they've had offensive coordinators that can call plays, right? They can put together offense. The Kubiaks and the Shanahans, they bring a system, a structure in place that would allow Lamar not to have to do so much all the time.
Right.
You see what they did with Sam Darnold. You see what they're doing with Brock Purdy and guys who are much less talented than Lamar. I thought that system would have been ideal. But I do like the Jesse Minter hire. What was your thoughts? Is this who you wanted from the beginning for the team, or were you like me who wanted someone else?
Yeah, I mean, I was different. I wanted I thought that they should go after somebody else, at least kick the tires. And I have no issues with the Jesse Minter hire. Jesse's name was a guy that was mentioned, at least in terms of a name that I had heard before John was even fired. It was always like, if anything happens to John, Jesse Minter is a guy that should be number one on the list of names to watch. So I wasn't really shocked. I think he was always kind of the betting favorite. But I thought swing for the fences, and I thought with this cycle, every coach had question marks, even Jesse Minter. He hasn't been a head coach before. He's stepping into a new role. Like, it's a lot of unknown with him. And so I thought that this would have been a perfect time to go after, even though the history doesn't support it, a college coach. I'd have called Kurt Signetti.
Just to see.
after they won that championship, I'm calling Kurt Signetti, because to me, if you're moving on from the staff that they're moving on, you're moving on from John, who's been there for 18 years, won a Super Bowl. Like, I'm trying to move up. I'm going up. And
you're going for it. Yeah.
I'm at least calling them. But I understand, their process and them doing it the way that they did it. And Signetti probably didn't want to leave Indiana anyway. So I'd have let him tell me no, though.
Tell me no.
For real.
Right.
But yeah,
just because when you think about it, Baltimore is, the minute I said, when this job opens up, it'll be the best job on the market, right? So maybe Signetti wasn't interested in coaching in the NFL, but he also probably didn't think that John Harbaugh would be dismissed from the Ravens. And so all of a sudden you're looking at it like, oh, okay, that's an opportunity to come in and have some success right away. They got a quarterback, they got a good roster, they have a good front office when it comes to supporting the coach and giving the coach everything they need to be successful. That's a place that if you're going to make that jump, you want to go somewhere where you're going to have some job security as well.
That dude knows football. You can't tell me that dude don't know football and that he don't get his players ready to play in every game. But yeah, I mean, Minter brings a lot of, he brings the youth factor. He's a sharp dude. I mean, you listen to him talk. He's a really sharp guy. He understands football. He understands defenses and how to stop these modern NFL offenses with these, with these unique talents at the quarterback position. You go and look at how tough those Charger defenses made life for Patrick Mahomes, who they're seeing twice a year. I mean, it was really, I think a huge boost to Jesse Minter's stock around the league. So I do think it helps that he has expertise on the side of the ball that they're lacking at right now, schematically. I do think they have some personnel flaws as well, obviously pass rush being the main one. But he and his scheme can help resolve that a little bit as well. And I just go back to Mike, and I'm not comparing Mentor to Mike McDonald. I don't think I think it's unfair to Mentor to expect him to just follow the same, success Mike McDonald has had, because that ain't the norm in the league.
The norm
is this doesn't work. And the Ravens are back looking for a head coach in 3 years. Like, that's the norm. So they have, the Ravens have been blessed to have that stability in that position, and they're hoping that this is the case as well. But I look at the transition of the defense from McDonald to Orr, and a lot of the same schematically, so they said, a lot of the same personnel for the most part. The younger personnel got older, and more first-round talent came in for Zach Orr on the defensive side of the ball. But yet you got more miscommunication, you got more mental errors, you got more just baseline defense. You can't even get tackling. You can't even get tackling half the time. So I do think that Mentor having that, understanding of how defense works, understanding of how to get the players to execute his scheme. And he's been in the building, the same benefit Zach Orr had, where he understands the culture of the defense and the expectation of the defense. Mentor, however, has shown that he can produce those types of defenses. I do think this is going to work most likely than not, because, he's inheriting a pretty good team too, that most new coaches don't get to inherit.
Right. Like, how often, is a job with the two-time MVP quarterback becomes available, right? Like, usually if that quarterback's winning MVPs, that means that coach is doing something right, and that coach is still having their job, right? And it didn't happen once this offseason. It's twice with the Bills as well, with Josh Allen. So with Jesse Minter, he started putting together his staff. He hired Declan Doyle, Chicago Bears offensive coordinator. He did not call plays under Ben Johnson, but apparently, according to all the sources closer to Chicago, he put a lot of the game plan stuff together and was responsible for getting those guys coached up on the in practice and making sure they were prepared for the games. What's your take on the Declan Doyle hire? Going young and going someone that, again, doesn't have the play calling experience, but has a lot of just general football experience. He's the same age as Lamar Jackson, oddly enough, funny enough. What's your thought about the Declan Doyle hire?
Yeah, I mean, he's actually 2 months younger than Lamar, I believe, which is crazy.
Oh, wow.
But it's an opportunity for a huge reward. It's an opportunity. They're swinging for the fences, I think, with this one. I'm a little surprised that they didn't go with somebody with a little bit more experience. Again, earlier in this conversation, we talked about John taking his team as far as they can go. So I can't help but feel a little uneasy when I see so much lack of experience for a team that's trying to get over like the last 2 steps, which is winning a conference championship and winning a Super Bowl. Like, I can't help but feel a little skeptical about that. The defensive side of the ball, again, I gave my reasons as to why I could live with that. And you bring in Weaver. I know we'll get to that, but the Weaver hire makes me feel much more confident about that. This situation, what does concern me is the lack of play calling. Obviously, it's a totally different responsibility. You can't shortchange how much
Important.
of a
Yeah.
weight that is
Mm-hmm.
on game day, because a lot of that is going against maybe the plan that you had in place because the game has gone totally different now. You're adjusting on the fly. How great are
Yeah.
you at adjusting and figuring out what the other team is doing, not only doing to you, but what they're going to do to then counter what you try to do to counter them? It's a chess match.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I do like is, like you said, he is known around the league for, he's obviously was with Ben Johnson and that Bears offense. I like that Bears offense. It was really balanced. They stuck to the run game when it worked. And when they were creative in the pass game. I like the pre-snap motions. I love it all. Obviously that Bears offensive line totally different from the Ravens offensive line, and you couldn't say that 2 years ago, but
No.
the Bears heavily invested in their offensive line last offseason, and I think that showed this season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's been with Sean Payton again. That's all great.
Mm-hmm.
I do love the preparation aspect because
Yeah.
I think that was a part of a little bit of the Ravens' is that their
Issue.
offensive issues was
Mm-hmm.
it didn't seem like they were always prepared. And I used to ask about this in the press conferences because Todd Monken made it clear, when the offense was great. He's like, look, don't give me credit. Give the players credit. Give Lamar credit because all I do is I call the initial play, and when they break the huddle, Lamar becomes the offensive coordinator. And it was great. It was working. This
Mm-hmm.
year, a lot of things changed. And I
Mm-hmm.
do think the offensive line being as bad as it was is the root to it all. But also, yeah, obviously Lamar being banged up, there were
Mm-hmm.
certain calls maybe that they would normally check into that he didn't feel comfortable checking into. Whatever the issue was, their pre-snap adjustments were not as sharp as they were in the past. And I
Yeah.
think that's something Declan Doyle will fix immediately. Health will also fix it. So we're
Mm-hmm.
building up the offensive line. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that I'm expecting to see a well prepared, sharp offense that doesn't beat themselves, because that's what everybody has gotten away with saying the last few years. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
beat themselves. They were
Yeah.
the most penalized team in the league a couple years ago. Then they've got the turnovers in the postseason. That shouldn't be the case now because I'm expecting Declan Doyle to make sure everybody is on point.
Yeah. Yeah. So I echo the same sentiments of, like, I'm excited about who he's coached under. Ben Johnson, Sean Payton, they're two of the best offensive minds in the NFL. I love what the Bears did, like you said. But my only issue is that one of my things that I've had with the Ravens when it comes to the offense is that at times it didn't feel like there was a guy that could challenge Lamar Jackson from the coaching staff standpoint, or that was willing to challenge him from a coaching standpoint. It's kind of like they were just kind of all just letting him do his thing. And when things would not go well, he would make mistakes. You wouldn't see that healthy conflict between coach and player. It would just be like, it's okay, it's all right. We'll
Mhm.
get him, and it's like there is a thing called healthy friction. You need a coach to be able to challenge the player and vice versa. Even when Josh McDaniels was young in New England, him and Tom Brady would get into it on the sidelines, right?
Mhm.
Because he's like, hey, man, you're supposed to be doing this. Like, we ain't got time for you, veering off, doing all this other stuff. Like, you need to do this, right? And when the players used to being great and used to kind of, so to speak, get in their way, um, some players will bend the knee. I mean, some coaches will bend the knee and kind of give the player his way. So my concern is, will Declan Doyle, will he challenge Lamar in moments where he needs to be challenged?
No, that's a good point. I mean,
Yeah.
and a lot of the greats, you mentioned Brady. I mean, Brady always praised his coaches for that
Mm-hmm.
tough love, for challenging him and pushing him to be great. Patrick Mahomes, everybody, Eric Bieniemy ain't for everybody. Eric
Mm-hmm.
Bieniemy left the Chiefs and he couldn't stick everywhere else because a lot of people can't take that style of coaching. But Patrick Mahomes loved it. He loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And look at, granted, they've won Super Bowl. I think they've won at least one since Eric Bieniemy has left.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Patrick Mahomes has been on record talking about how they have not been as sharp as they used to be when the enemy was there and he was on their ass every day in practice, including him, because he didn't tolerate any mistakes. There are clips of him coaching when he was the running backs coach with the Vikings, coaching AP, and getting on AP in practice. And look, I've had conversations with Lamar on the side before where we've talked about just how coaching is different now. And we talked about like growing up, playing little league and stuff, coaches, they on you. They cussing you out like you grown men half the time. And he was just like, you can't even coach like that these days because people will look at you different, all of that type of stuff. So I do think he wants to be great. I think he always talks about how much he idolizes Tom Brady. I think it takes the right coach to get his ear. And I'm not saying that Todd didn't have it. I think Todd did, but if you're going, it's all about building those relationships. And that's what Jesse Minter talked about at his presser too. You understand your dynamic with that player. So he and Declan Doyle have to build that up. But I remember one of the big differences when Todd first started, we all on the side were like, man, I actually hear him. We didn't hear Greg Roman at all during practices, but you heard Todd Monken day one. You heard him talking to everybody. I do think they need somebody that's going to be on them to pay attention to the finer little details that come back to bite them late in close games or late season games in the postseason.
No, I agree 100%. This team struggled with discipline and execution the last couple of years, right? And discipline and execution in the biggest moments. That's why I appreciated what Jesse Minter said when he said that we are going to be our best when our best is required, right? Because I felt like that was a direct, him created. He gave that quote because he knew that was the elephant in the room. Like, it wasn't the lack of success that John Harbaugh had overall. It was the Ravens were not their best when their best was required. When it was the AFC Championship game and the offense is scoring 10 points and they're running the ball only 6 times, or we get in the divisional round and guys are dropping the football and turning the ball over and just doing things that's just not smart from a execution standpoint. This team hadn't always been their best, right? And I appreciated him saying that. Declan Doyle, from what I heard about him, he is not afraid to challenge players. His age doesn't prohibit him from being a tough coach or being a hard coach. He does not walk into a locker room, though, with the cachet of like a Sean Payton or Andy Reid or Sean McVay or someone like where you're saying like, okay, I got pelts on the wall, right? Like, I've done this, right? Even a Kubiak, if Kubiak wins the Super Bowl this year, he walks into that Raiders locker room and it's like, look what I just did with Sam Darnold, right? Listen to me, right? This guy is coming in and saying, look, I have a vision, I have a plan. Yes, I didn't call plays in Chicago under Ben Johnson, but I had a lot to do with the success that we had over there. And if you follow me, we'll have some success. So I'm excited about the hire. I do like the infusion of youth because it felt like Harbaugh used to hire a lot of old retreads, right? A lot of guys from around the league, and he would hire, a lot of fans felt like it was a little bit too much nepotism with some of his hires. I mean, there's nepotism all around the league. Every team, every organization has nepotism, but John, it felt like it was just, lather, rinse, repeat. A lot of recycled guys coming back, bringing back Dean Pease, bringing back all these Chuck Paganos, and, you go Greg Roman, and it just felt like it was just, okay, we need to get some young blood in here. And now we have a lot of it, right? We got Jesse Minter, we got Declan Doyle. I do like. What did you think about them? The hiring of Joe Lombardi yesterday? Is it like an offensive overseer to kind of support him from the same coaching tree, right? Sean Payton. Right. He was just, I think, he was let go by the Broncos, but I think that was more so to elevate Davis Webb.
Right.
So, what are your thoughts about that, real quick? About them bringing in Lombardi to kind of support him.
Yeah, I mean, he was also in LA with the Chargers. He was their offensive coordinator as well at one point. I've had like this love-hate thing with Joe Lombardi, to be honest with you. Like, there are aspects of his offenses that I do like at times. But his offenses tend to go stale. And even if you look at the Broncos this year, I mean, there were times where that Broncos offense just could not move the ball. They couldn't score. And that was before JK got hurt. And JK had a really good year. I think JK is just a productive player when he's healthy. The proof is in the pudding. As long as he can stay healthy, you ride him for as long as you can, because inevitably, probably something's going to happen because of he ain't the biggest guy in his style of play, but he's so productive. But yeah, I mean, you got to have some veteran presence somewhere. So I don't mind, them reaching out to Lombardi and bringing on a familiar guy, somebody that has been around the league, that has been in that chair, to give an extra voice and just somebody to bounce stuff off on. Again, I'm happy to see the youth look at somebody like, Lombardi and say, I might need some help, as opposed to just staying with a lot of that unknown and a lot of inexperience, toppled with inexperience. Like, that ain't going to work. But also, like I said, I think I mentioned it earlier, like, it didn't work for Zach Orr. You mentioned the Dean Peases and the Chuck Paganos that they brought in to help him. Like, maybe it was just too many voices in the room after a while. That could have become an issue. But yeah, I mean, I think what the Ravens are banking on, right or wrong, is the fact that they have Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers. Like, they think that their offense is going to be potent enough, regardless of who they hire. Lamar's won 2 MVPs with 2 different coordinators. At this point, he's coordinator proof. As long as he's healthy, he's going to put up elite numbers. It's just
that's just what it is. So, but that's my concern, though. My concern is when hiring a defensive coach, you're saying Lamar can be good under any coach. So we don't really have to focus on that side, because just having Lamar Jackson is going to get us 10, 9, 10, 11 wins, right? He's going to be great. But it's just like, okay, but that's the problem that I saw, was it was too much of Lamar make us look good. Lamar make us look right, even though we have no idea what we're doing. And now you're going to bring in these young coaches, and you're going to ask Lamar again to elevate the floor and lift the ceiling of a coach just getting his feet wet, right? So that coach is going to go as far as Lamar takes him. And so now it's like, okay, I don't want it. I just didn't want it to feel like it was too much pressure on Lamar Jackson to have to go out there and kind of do it all himself. I think some things that I've heard around the league, I was just at the Senior Bowl, it felt like the Ravens should have gotten Lamar a coach that could give him the answers to the test, right?
Right.
Where, kind of what Andy did for Patrick and some of the coaches and quarterbacks you see around the league in good systems, where it's like, okay, the coach can see everything. The coach knows everything when it comes to the way they want to attack the defense, and he can give you the answers to the test, as opposed to you having to go out there and figure it out on your own in real time. So what's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely don't disagree. I think also, and Jesse Minter, I think he said this either at the press conference or one of his interviews on TV. A quarterback's best friend is a great defense. And that is something that Lamar hasn't had for the most part, other than go back to 2023. The Triple Crown went on defense. They go to the AFC Championship game. They could have won that game. They shut the Chiefs out in the second half. So I do think that's another element that they're betting on. They're betting on their defense getting back to an elite level, and the offense having a high enough floor to where it'll work itself out. And they're betting on Declan Doyle hitting it off. Like they are taking some swings, they're taking some gambles. And I guess theoretically, if you are going to gamble, probably should do it on the offensive side of the ball, where you have the 1% player, and you have a 1%er at quarterback, you've got a 1%er at running back. You've got elite talent on that side of the ball. Defense is a little bit of a different story. And it's impossible to put together the you know the best offseason coaching staff because some of these dudes want head coach jobs, some of them got relationships elsewhere. But I do love how they attack the defensive side of the ball coaching wise in hopes that the offense has a sustainable enough floor to where to work.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. With the notion that the defense was really bad. I mean, you can't go from Triple Crown to what we've seen the last 2 years and not expect like, oh no, we got to get this thing fixed. Mike McDonald left, but a lot of other coaches left after that 23 season that had to me, in my opinion, I think they had a huge influence on that defense. And this guy is one of them, Anthony Weaver. He was the D-line coach that year. I believe he was also the assistant head coach as well. I know you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but real quick, last couple questions though. You like the Weaver hire, right? Like I like having that guy supporting Mentor, even though Mentor is going to call the plays. One, Weaver, his expertise is the front end, the D line, while Mentor's expertise is the secondary. I think they can kind of work off each other. So, what are your thoughts on just Weaver being back? And do you like the fit? You like him coming back?
Oh yeah, I think it's a home run. I think it's an absolute home run. Even with Mentor calling the plays, Weaver will still have a huge responsibility. I think Mentor is going to lean on Weaver a lot. I think Weaver's going to be the guy, kind of how we talked about Declan Doyle, what his role was before. That's what Weaver's job will be. And Weaver's call plays. He's coming from Miami where he just had that responsibility. So I think his job will be to just get guys prepared. And that was a huge issue for the defense. They just looked so lost. Attention to detail wasn't there for them. Just the fundamentals escaped that defense. And I mean, Weaver leaving after the AFC Championship game, Denard Wilson leaving and going to Tennessee as their defensive coordinator. I mean, they lost their coaching staff, got decimated after the AFC Championship game. So, I think Weaver's a home run. It makes me feel very secure about, the coaching from a schematic standpoint and a preparedness standpoint, preparation, I should say, standpoint going into these games. It's just on a matter of them building up the personnel, getting the pass rush. But I think that this is a home run signing for them.
Absolutely. All right. So something that all Ravens fans are going to want to know: how soon is this Lamar Jackson contract going to get done, man? In your estimation, do they get this thing done before free agency starts?
To be honest, I'd be surprised. These things just do take time. And even though I don't think that this one should drag on the way the first one did, I don't think it'll be as tough of a negotiation. I mean, Steve had said in his presser, he feels like the framework of the contract is already there. It'll just carry over from the last time. It's all about getting him more, obviously raising that money. And I don't expect Lamar to be looking for the fully guaranteed the way that was going around the first time. I know he wants this team to get back to challenging for Super Bowls, and he doesn't want to miss the playoffs. Like, I think he wants to give the team flexibility to be able to engage in the first stage of free agency this year. So I want to think that it will get done relatively quick, but I just don't know. I mean, Lamar's dealing, he's repping himself, and he's a different dude. Lamar's moving how Lamar moves, and the incentive that the Ravens are offering him right now is it could help the team, help them this offseason financially, and B, gets a huge payday right away, by turning a lot of that money into a guarantee. So I don't know. I don't think it gets done before free agency. Just odds are it probably doesn't, but I don't think that this should be a difficult deal to get done. The Ravens want Lamar, and as far as I've been told, Lamar doesn't want to leave Baltimore.
I love it, love it. Like I'm sure Ravens fans will be excited to hear that. All right, last two questions. Free agency priorities. Obviously, this man right here is going to determine a lot of what they do. In free agency, EDC said it on the presser with Steve that they plan to be more aggressive this year than they've been in the past. Um, Linderbaum, guys like that. Do you expect him back this year, next year? Um, and
I'd say so.
yeah,
I'd be surprised if Linderbaum isn't on the team. They have enough offensive line issues to not need to fill, the void of one of their better offensive linemen. And I do think Linderbaum's better than the way he played this year. He was okay. He was fine, but inconsistent at times. And I think that's a large part due to the guards on both sides. They got to figure out that guard situation, and to have to go back to the drawing board on a center again, I don't think that
yeah,
that's what they want to do right now. You see how important an offensive line is, even though you have Lamar and Derrick Henry, they're human. And
yeah,
Derek, God bless him, he still found a way to having a great year. But Lamar, the injuries just piling up on him. I
yeah,
think they need to invest in this offensive line.
yeah. You think? Do you think Likely is gone with the
Probably.
re-signing
I
of
don't think that
Andrews?
they're
Yeah,
gonna. Yeah, I don't see Likely wanting to be re-signed at this point. The two tight
yeah,
end thing hasn't worked out for him. It just hasn't.
mm-hmm,
When he's been able to go out there and be the guy,
mm-hmm.
Likely I think could be one of the top tight ends in the league. I'm on record for how high I think of Isaiah Likely.
Yeah,
Um,
same.
I think he's going to get paid somewhere, and there are plenty of teams that could use an Isaiah Likely, and I think he would eat in a couple of these offenses out here. So they invested in Mark. We'll see what that looks like as that goes forward. But yeah, I have a hard time envisioning Isaiah Likely being on this team next year.
You mentioned the Bears. And way they overhauled their interior of their offensive line. You think that's something the Ravens could do in free agency? Go out and get like maybe add a guard or in the free agency or two, and or maybe address it in the draft. Maybe not necessarily with the first pick in the first round, but maybe as the draft goes on the second round, third round, because they did draft Emory Jones,
Right.
and so you got some guys there that can compete for that spot. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean the Ravens will have to do it a little differently. The Bears don't have, they're not paying a Lamar Jackson right now. They
Right.
have Caleb Williams on a rookie deal, so they were able to kind of spend that money a little bit more loosely
Mm-hmm.
than the Ravens will be able to. But yeah, I mean they got to get crafty. I think this is where the scouting department is going to have to start to shine. This is where you know not just going after just the gems, but spending money wisely. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to invest as long as it's not a bad investment. Look, even a guy who Kevin Zeitler, who they probably shouldn't have let go when they did, he might be an option for them
Mm-hmm.
this off season. We'll just have to see, but I do think they need to get more depth on their offensive line in
Mm-hmm.
general, but definitely need to raise the floor of that offensive line because what we saw this year was inexcusable. I've never seen so many linemen on the ground in these games. The same linemen. It was bad.
It was
Honestly,
terrible, man. It was terrible. All right, last question that they want me to ask you, man, is edge rush. Everybody wants Max Crosby. Trey Hendrickson is a free agent. There's a guy named Jalen Phillips who just who played for Weaver up in Miami before he got traded to Philly. Do you see them going after one of those guys? Would you like to see them go after one of those guys? What's your take on that?
yeah, they need to do something. They need to do
Mm-hmm.
something as at the edge rusher. You got to pay to play though. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's asking for Max Crosby. I hope people won't be upset if they see what the Ravens end up having to offer to get Max. I mean, because they're not just giving them away.
No.
They're not just giving away Max Crosby. The Ravens will have to get a little uncomfortable, I think, to be able to pull that trade off, and that's probably going to include like multiple first round picks, at least two in
Yeah.
my mind. Um, and I guess throw in a Bateman,
Yeah.
um, But yeah, I mean, they're going to have to get creative because the edge rusher has become such a premium position. I mean, it's up
Yep.
there with the quarterback, it's up there with receivers. So, and they've also got to start hitting on some of these draft picks. They've taken
Yeah.
some swings, and I like
Mike
Mike
Green.
Green. I
Me
still think
too.
Mike Green
Yeah.
could turn out to be something.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice if they let a guy that just led the nation in sacks rush the quarterback on third down instead of dropping into coverage. But what do I know?
What do I know, right?
But yeah, I mean, I
I think
think,
mental will do that though. I think mental
oh
will
yeah,
utilize our
yeah.
talent.
I mean,
That's why I was telling people. I think our we have talent. I think it was misused a little bit.
yes,
So I think we may see guys that we've seen on the team already and be like, oh wow, he didn't know he was that good, right? Because it's about coaching.
yeah. I mean, you got to know what your players do well and lean into that. If you drafted a guy that was just the best pass rusher in the nation, you let him rush the quarterback. You don't have him
Exactly.
drop into coverage on third down to guard one of the top tight ends in football.
Hey, did that Bateman thing shock you? He was leaked. He was
Not
hacked, and
really.
but he agreed with the hacker. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, it was a little weird. I like Rashad. I think he's a cool dude. But I'm not surprised. It seems like each offseason
It's something. Yeah.
is something between him and the Ravens. I just can't put my finger on it. I've asked though, and it's again, as far as I'm told, he wants to be in Baltimore. But who knows?
Do you
Who
think he
knows?
will be in Baltimore when the season starts next season? Just gut feeling.
So as it was described to me by one agent, is he's an expensive fourth option. So
Mm,
for the Ravens right
right.
now, he's an expensive fourth option. So
Say Derrick Henry,
he
Andrews. Yeah.
he could be moved.
Okay.
He could definitely be moved. I think he was almost moved last off season. So I think it's definitely a chance. My gut probably says that he's not on this team next year, but I think if he's not here, it would be a part you would hope of a bigger deal that
Bigger
he's
deal.
not the focal point of. Those draft picks would be the focal point of whatever big deal the Ravens do this year.
Right. Okay. Cool, man. I appreciate you so much. Hey, is Marlon Humphrey back next year? What do you think? Fan base got a love-hate relationship
They
with
do.
Marlon, man.
Uh,
I think I read somewhere where they could save like $20 million if they
yeah,
moved on
it
Marlon.
ain't gonna be on that contract on this
Yeah.
contract he on. They're
Yeah.
definitely gonna save some money by moving on from Marlon.
Mm-hmm.
I think Marlon can still play. I just think he's probably more of a safety now than he
Yeah.
is a corner. I just don't think he can physically play the corner position anymore. He can't
Not at the
run with
level.
guys, but he's
Yeah.
got great ball skills still. I think he's still
Mm-hmm.
got great smarts.
He's physical. He's still
Yeah,
physical.
he's a
Yeah.
physical guy. Like
I can see
he's
John. I can see John coming to get him.
oh, without a doubt,
He's going to want
without a
to bring
doubt, and
some of
he
those
loves John.
voices. Yeah, and they love each other. And John's going to want to bring some of those Ravens voices to echo his message. Marlon is the perfect person for that.
And Marlon would probably love New York. Honestly, he probably would love New York.
His
I could see it.
podcast.
Yeah, my gut would say that Marlon's probably not on his team next year.
Okay. Well, Cordell, man, I thank you so much. I know we went over a little bit. You got stuff to do, but I appreciate you. Super Bowl prediction, man. Seahawks or Patriots?
Yeah, I'm going heavy Seahawks. The Patriots kind of just
Coach
skated here. They took advantage of their pathway, but they didn't look good doing it. I think that Seahawks defense is going to get after May. He's got to hold on to the ball. I think he's going to turn it over 2 or 3 times, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be a blowout. I keep talking about that Seahawks Broncos Super Bowl from a few years back.
They jumped on them. Yeah.
Oh man, I just don't think New England's going to be able to match that physicality. Yeah. And I think they're going to run them off the field, honestly.
Yeah, those receivers too are a little iffy with the Patriots, and Seattle's strength is their secondary, right? Like they have guys that can just lock you up on the outside. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. Cordell, real quick, let everybody know what do you got going on coming up, where they can follow you at, where they can read your content or just follow you for Ravens news and even Orioles information.
Yeah, you could follow me at Cordell Woodlands, just as it's spelled, right there, on any social media. I cover the Ravens and Orioles, so be having a lot of Ravens content going on during the off season, and obviously spring training is right around the corner for the Orioles. So baseball season is almost here. My show, The Fresh Take, with my co-host Ben Hall. No
Yeah,
show
Ben.
this week, but we'll be back next week. But you can listen to us usually on Thursday evenings on the Odyssey app, and we're also streaming live on YouTube as well.
Awesome. Well, Cordell, thank you, man. Until next time, I appreciate you. And we'll see how all this stuff turns out. We got a Super Bowl coming up, so in a busy off season. So we'll see how it all turns out. And I'll be talking to you soon, brother.
For sure, man. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you.